Hello, everyone, and welcome to engineering.com. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar on memory and storage market shifts and how to navigate trends, supply strategy, and industrial AI. Today's presentation is brought to you by Advantech in collaboration with Phison and Transcend. I'll introduce our guests in just a minute, but first allow me to go over some quick housekeeping. A PDF of this presentation will be available for download in the Resources widget. We'll have about 15 minutes at the end of today's session for Q&A, so if you've got any questions, write them in the Questions widget at any time throughout the presentation, and we'll do our best to get you an answer at the end. You can also expand your view of the slides by using the icon in the top right corner of the Slide widget. All of the boxes on your screen can be moved and resized just the way you like them. If you have to leave for any reason, don't worry. This webinar will be available on demand at engineering.com. And finally, if you experience any technical issues today, start by hitting the refresh button in your browser and reloading the page. That will solve most problems. But if you're still having trouble, you can click Help in the top menu for more troubleshooting steps, and you can also reach out for help via the Ask Question widget. And now I'm pleased to introduce our expert speakers for the day. Mongshen Wu, Associate Vice President of the Industrial Edge Value Group at Advantech, Michael Wu, President of Phison US, Helen Tan, Senior Account Manager at Transcend, and Thomas Cho, Senior Product Manager at Advantech. Thanks to all of our guests for joining us today. We're going to be hearing from each of them in turn, but due to time zone differences, our first speaker, Mongshen Wu, Associate Vice President of Industrial Edge Value Group at Advantech, has prepared his presentation in advance for us. Let's take a look.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mongshen Wu from Advantech Mothership. Recently, the global market has been facing increasing shortage of DRAM and SSD components, driven by rising demand in AI, edge computing, and industrial applications. These shortages are creating challenges for many companies that rely on stable and long lifecycle memory solutions. At Advantech, we understand how critical reliable supply is for industrial systems. Through strong partnerships with leading memory manufacturers, strategic inventory planning, and long-term product support, Advantech helps customers maintain continuity and reduce the impact of component shortages. Today, I will briefly share how Advantech's memory solutions and the supply strategy can help ease these challenges and support your business stability. The biggest change in the market comes from AI-driven demand. The top cloud services providers will spend over $710 billion in 2026 with aggressive expansion in AI infrastructure. CSPs included Google, AWS, Meta, Microsoft, and etc. What does this mean for you? It means memory suppliers are prioritizing these hyperscale customers, and enterprise and industrial customers are being pushed to lower priority. This is not just a price increase. This is a supply allocation issue. Same as the SSD market, the DRAM market is being heavily driven by demand from CSPs and AI applications. With the rapid growth of AI computing, major memory manufacturers have shifted a significant portion of their production capability toward HBM and HBF even. As a result, the supply available for conventional DRAM, especially DDR4 and DDR5, has been significantly reduced. This shift has created a substantial supply gap in the market, leading to a severe shortage situation. From the end of 2025 to March 2026, DDR4 prices have surged by over 900%, while the DDR5 prices have increased by more than 50%. This reflects not only strong demand, but also a structural imbalance between supply and the demand. Looking at the supply situation, we are seeing severe shortages and the rapid price increases for SSD and the NAND. Wafer prices have even spiked up to 500% within 6 months. In addition, suppliers are tightening allocation and requiring prepayments to secure supply. Overall, demand is increasing while supply is decreasing, creating a significant imbalance in the market. Due to the ongoing supply shortage, Taiwanese manufacturers such as Nanya and Winbond have stepped in to take the more significant role in the market. They have been increasing their focus on DDR4 production to help fill the supply gap. However, despite these efforts, demand still far exceeds what they can currently supply. Although there has been news regarding capacity expansion and new fabs to increase DRAM production, most of these projects are not expected to come online until mid to late 2027, rather than 2026. For major players such as Samsung, Hynix, and Micron, there have been no clear announcements regarding significant capacity expansion. This is largely because they are prioritizing profitability and aiming to maintain DRAM prices at a relatively high level. The graph below illustrates the supply-demand balance of the overall DRAM market. As shown, the supply sufficiency ratio continues to decline, indicating the demand significantly exceeds the current supply. From the SSD market perspective, demand continues to grow strongly. This growth is primarily driven by the rapid expansion of AI applications, increasingly server deployments, and ongoing transition from hard drives to SSDs. On the supply side, however, manufacturers are increasingly reallocating production capacity toward enterprise SSDs and AI-related memory solutions. At the same time, there's no clear indication of a significant near-term capacity expansion. As a result, the supply-demand imbalance is expected to widen further. We have already observed a similar dynamics in the DRAM market. Whereas the DRAM supply conditions have recently eased slightly, the SSD segment is now facing increasing pressure due to this structured demand and the supply shifts. Let me briefly walk through how we are supporting our customers through a stable allocation and a flexible commercial framework. First, from an allocation stability perspective, for DRAM, we are seeing increased supply support from vendors, covering both DDR4 and DDR5 platforms, including solutions for Tier 1 and Tier 2 controllers. At the same time, we recommend customers gradually transition from DDR4 to DDR5, which will help align with the further support and supply trends and ensure longer-term availability. For SSD, we are working closely with the suppliers to increase our monthly allocation in order to better support growing demand. With these adjustments, we also expect to see improvements in standard lead times, helping customers better plan their production schedules. To ensure supply continuity, we are implementing fixed monthly allocations combined with the partial shipments. This approach helps customers maintain stable production operations, even when total order quantities are large. Now, moving to the commercial framework supporting this model, our PPV management is aligned with the confirmed allocations, ensuring that the supply commitments are properly supported. Allocation commitments creating a more predictable and stable supply arrangement. Prepayment or down payment arrangements may be applied to secure allocation while qualified component vendors are introduced. And finally, partial shipments will be arranged progressively against the total purchase order quantity, allowing customers to receive materials continuously rather than waiting for the entire order to be fulfilled. Overall, this structure allows us to provide a greater allocation stability, improve support continuity, and a more flexible commercial framework to support our customers' long-term operations. Advantech SQR DRAM and SQF SSD are fully qualified and optimized to work seamlessly with our computing platforms. These memory solutions are designed to ensure long-term stability, reliability, and compatibility across our systems. As you may know, Advantech provides a broad portfolio of computing solutions ranging from embedded and standard form factor platforms to high-performance servers and cloud computing systems. Our technologies cover both x86 and ARM architectures, supporting a wide range of applications. In addition, we continue to expand our capabilities in AI technologies, connectivity, and wireless solutions, combined with our designing services to help customers accelerate their product development and deployment. Advantech also maintains strong partnership with the leading technology companies such as NVIDIA, ARM, Intel, and AMD, ensuring that our platforms remain aligned with the latest industry innovations. Another key advantage is that Advantech manages both our supply chain and manufacturing operations internally. This allows us to maintain greater visibility and control. As a result, even during challenging market conditions like today, we are still able to support our valued customers with a stable supply, flexible mechanisms, and a reliable long-term support for their daily operations. In conclusion, whilst ongoing DRAM and SSD supply constraints continue to present challenges across the industry, dependable partners can make a significant differences. With a robust supply network, industrial-grade memory solutions, and long-term product support, Advantech remains committed to helping customers maintain operational stability and ensure their system runs smoothly. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to continuing to support you across all aspects of your projects and requirements.
Thank you, Meng-Shen, for that. Now we're going to move on to another speaker, but before we do that, I'm going to bounce forward one slide here because we've got a poll question for you guys. And it should be on screen for you right now. So the question is, which SSD function is most important to you? And I'll give you a minute to read through the answers and make your selection. And in the meantime, I'd like to ask Thomas. Thomas, what do you think about this question?
Yeah, it's Thomas. So let me explain a little bit on the questions. So number one, the high write endurance means that if you have an application which require to write a lot of data into SSD, for instance, 3 times over the capacity of SSD per day, then that might be important to you. The second one, the super cap. If you have important data during the communication which cannot be lost because of a power outage, then this is the function which you will require. OPPO software. OPPO is a user authentication software, which will need a special software to support. So if you have those kind of a demand, so about access security, then it might be something which will be valuable to you. The fourth one is others, and you might have other functions which you might require, then you can select this one. Okay.
Thanks, Thomas. I'll give everyone another 10 seconds to make their choice. In the meantime, Thomas, A, B, C, or D for you?
For me, probably C, because this is a common requirement, which, security become more and more important. So I think a lot of people probably will need the access control.
I think you're right. All right, let's see if our audience agrees with you. No, no, they went the other direction, and most of our audience went with A, which also is pretty important to have. Looks like 58.8% A, 20.6% B, and then a few others. So perhaps we'll hear some of those other responses later in the Q&A. And now I'm going to move on to our next presenter. Thanks, Thomas. Up now, we have, oh, excuse me, that's the wrong slide. Here we are. Our next session is Michael Wu, President of Phison US.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Wu. I'm the president of Phison US. I've been working with Phison for coming up 19 years. So it's been a wild ride, but nothing like the ride that we are being into today. You know, what an exciting time for storage. Storage used to be more of a afterthought, the passive components, but because of the AI demand, it's becoming a very active component in actually allow the AI company to actually ramp their revenue, right? As the market's shifting from training to inferences, the requirement going from high-speed DRAM is starting to shift over to the storage. And as Meng Wu mentioned before, this is really triggering a lot of supply and demand efficiency that we are seeing today. So, you know, how does the storage is impacted by the AI, right? What are the, you know, things that the people are looking for in terms of storage, right? So as the AI servers, where there are storage that's closest to the GPU, there is a wave of high-speed performance storage. And actually, the poll question not long ago also speaks to, you know, with this high-speed storage, a lot of them are also demanding a high endurance, right? That's, you know, that's data that will require to cache the GPU data. That's that requires a lot of high speed, you know, not creating, you know, bottleneck, right? The other trend that we see is, and this ties very much to, you know, what Advantech is really good at is, you know, the edge AI now, you know, I talk to the partners is, you know, edge devices used to be, you know, something that may not be seen as important as, or the edge servers are not important as, you know, the large big cell server, but, you know, with the AI, actually, boot drive is, you know, more critical than anything today. And with the edge AI, the low latency is also becoming very important. That requires, you know, sub-millisecond storage response to keep the operation running. Another trend that we see, which is actually triggering the whole supply shortage, is the large capacity demand for QLC. The reason is hard drive is out of capacity, and the best alternative for that is a high capacity QLC. And because of that, a lot of the NAND makers are shifting their NAND supply capacity and allocated the QLC, which causes a lot of shortage on the TLC side as well, right? And the thinking behind having a large density QLC is that how much of a single SSD could actually replace a hard drive in terms of the capacity, right? You know, with the 120 introduction QLC, there's an announcement of 256 terabyte QLC. It's equivalent to 408, you know, the size of the HDD. So that's something that, you know, in the storage world, the high demand for the QLC, which really become the triggering factor of the big, massive shortage on the NAND in general, that's it's kind of shaped by the AI demand. As I mentioned before, storage for the first time, I see that it's really becoming an active data layer, right? So it used to be DRAM is doing caching, storage is doing the data storage. But with the shortage right now, I think people are, you know, having a thought, how can I take DRAM and storage into like a unified pool. You've seen announcement from NVIDIA about the inference context memory storage. It's how do we use with the DRAM and shortage, and DRAM has to accomplish a very critical mission. So how do we accompany the DRAM with the storage by giving it additional KV cache, right, for the edge AI memory to increase the edge inference pipeline, right, and really help the real-time AI to store all this context memory. And there's another way to kind of describe it is that storage is becoming a compute device in the way that it's not really computing, but because it's able to store the context memory, it reduces the need for the GPU to recalculate the result, because without sufficient DRAM memory, you actually have to throw some context memory away, and it will trigger you to have to recalculate. So having storage actually reduce the need for compute or recompute again, right? And because of the pricing elasticity, we see that with the price increase, Meng-Shen will also mention 5 times right now, right? And probably 10 times for DRAM. It's really causing the more demand is supporting enterprise. The other trend that I see the demand also shifting to industrial also like Advantech, because what happened is without a boot devices, without in a networking device or edge server device, you cannot power the whole system, right? Like a network switch, right? So this is something that is a dynamic shift that the enterprise and industrial, because to keep the production and the server built out, they will pay additional to keep those the production sustainability. And as a result of that, the consumer supply definitely will, the demand because of the pricing, it's actually drop a lot. PC, a smartphone, but we anticipate that when there's more additional supply, maybe in 2 years' time, the consumer supply will come back and actually come back with a vengeance, just like the post-COVID, where during the COVID time where people are just doing the spending. So with the pulse of spending on the consumer, there will be accelerated spending, even when the supply comes alive. So overall, many trends coping towards this is probably the large super cycle of a NAND flash shortage. With that, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And now we'll move on to our next speaker, Helen Tan, Senior Account Manager at Transcend.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining this webinar today. My name is Helen Tan, and I am the Senior Account Manager under Transcend Information. Of course, now we heard about Meng-Shen and then also Michael to talk about overall the industry, what we've been facing, especially for the AI booming and the server demand increase. And then for the SSD NAND flash portion from the Phison President, Michael. So today, I'm pretty honored to talk about what we're looking for the DRAM market outlook and what would be the next generation DRAM technology moving forward to come back to the current challenging time like now. So first, of course, let's talk about elephant in the room, the supply sufficiency. Up until before 2025, the whole overall DRAM supply actually has been on the undersupply. However, back then time, all of the manufacturers were not really making monies till the first HBM has been qualified with the Hynix solution with NVIDIA around the first half of the 2025. And of course, to try to win back to the crown of the market share, Samsung also got qualified with their HBM solution with NVIDIA around the beginning of the second half of the year, which is where that we started to see the whole marketing has been shifted about their whole resources in the production to the more focus on the HBM versus the conventional DRAM. Lots of their manufacturer announced their exit strategy for the DDR4 portion, which caused a huge gap in between the DRAM, the supply, because a little bit more older generation that has been still using the CPU will only support DDR4, the demand is still there. And with the technology move forward with the newer one, DDR5, DDR5 is actually sharing the same production line with the HBM. And then mind you that HBM actually spending 4 times the production capacity compared to the conventional DRAM, which we can see why the gap started getting more and more. And as we expected to look about this kind of the shortage, this year for sure that we will still continue to see the shortage on both DDR4 and DDR5 segment. Will even continue to last till the 2027 even. We're constantly monitoring the market situation to see if we will see this, the situation will get a little bit relief around the end of 2027, moving to 2028. So if we're looking at each segment in terms of the PC DRAM, server DRAM, and consumer DRAM. TC DRAM, although the overall system demand in PC DRAM has been revised downwards a little bit, however, the fulfillment in terms between the suppliers and then PC OEM or the macro house has been reduced. And because the demand is still there, but the production cannot really catch the demand, which drives the pricing to be increasing insanely high since the last year. For the server part, we all talked about AI and also those the cloud service provider, because right now the AI stage is moving into the inference development, which requires a lot of the memory and the storage power. All of those CSPs that they've put their primary sourcing more focused on the register DIMM and the higher capacity, which takes up a lot of the production capacity for those manufacturer. Those CSPs also signed the long-term agreement with the manufacturer with a larger amount of deposit just so that they can secure their supply, which leads to the conventional DRAM limited supply that drives the pricing gap even higher. In this quarter, we're looking at maybe conventional DRAM overall might be increased by 58 to 63%. So between DDR4 and DDR5 might be another elephant in the room that everybody would be interested to know that how's the DDR4 situation right now. In terms of right now, there's still some legacy platform we need to DDR4, especially for your platform application type-wise that some of them will still need to support it for another 3 to 5 years. So DDR4 demand is still there, but DDR5, if your CPU are using AMD 7000 above or Intel Alder Lake, for those platforms is able to move in from DDR4 to DDR5, they probably already have the progress has been being made to move into DDR5, which drives the DDR5 demand also increased. And around the third quarter of last year, DDR5 price also starting to increasing. Now DDR5 price premium over DDR4 is expected to be 15 to 20% in this quarter, and it might be even further increased to 25% in the next quarter. And in terms of the DDR5, as I mentioned, it does share the same production with the HBM, which is why lately we're seeing that DDR5 price are increased and some of the supply are limited. However, because of the newer generation are more focused on DDR5 5600 megahertz or the 7200 megahertz, the mainstream was still more towards to the DDR5 segment versus the DDR4. Lots of CSP last year around the end of fourth quarter, they did stock up a lot of DDR4 demand just so that they can prolong their life cycle for their legacy platform, but all of their MPI or newer projects are moving into DDR5. So between Transcend and Advantech, what we can support, not only just the support and the supply, because we also have the long-term agreement with our supplier. Our first priority is to support our key customer like Advantech to have the highest formula rate to support your longevity of your project or platform. And then on top of that, we also provide the various technology features to understanding what kind of the application you're working with, such as data center, digital entertainment, healthcare, aerospace industry, or automotive. These are just a glimpse of the industry that we all have our colleagues to work with. So we have been providing a certain technology to help to understanding what type of the features that we can work with your certain application. Like if you're doing handheld healthcare, corner bound might be one of the features that you want to make sure that the data won't be lost in the transition time of the moving your devices or your slot machine in any of the casinos in Vegas. So for the DRAM portion that we provide a different legacy solution, including DDR3, or now it could be considered DDR4, or moving to the DDR5, with various of the form factors such as UDIMM, ECC DIMM, or even registered DIMM. And today, I'm really happy to have this opportunity to just kind of share what we're looking into about the DRAM portion or even the NAND flash, just see what we can help you guys to decide what will be the longest lifetime solution with the best technology to provide to you and your end customer. And thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Ellen. We have one more poll question for our audience now. And again, I'll give you a couple minutes to read it and select a response. The question is, which area would you like more support or resources for? And Helen, I'd love your take on this question as well.
Thank you so much, Michael. Like I mentioned about, depends on your application or industry. Sometimes what you need to focus on a little bit different. If your industry could afford a little bit more budget-wise the solutions, of course, you have to look into the newer technology selection because it definitely can prolong your life cycle. You don't have to face about discontinue or the alternative solution anytime soon. But with that being said, what type of your board you're using, what type of the technology you're using, the design validation support will be the part that we provide the knowledge and the professionalism to understanding that sometimes there's a middle ground that can also fit into your project. And of course, life cycle is one of the key words, especially in the embedded industry. What we can sustain in this life cycle to not to change often will be also the key elements for you and your customer to understand what's the best solution. So I would say that just there's more different aspect for you guys to understand, but we will be happy to provide what will be our intake for all of these options.
Great, thanks, Helen. I'm going to give everybody 10 more seconds to get in your responses. I can see some of you are not putting in a response. I want to hear from you. We want to know what you think. A, B, C, or D. It's not hard. All right, let's see what the results are. All right, interesting. Looks like most of our audience wants more support or resources for technology selection guidance. And that's followed by lifecycle management and reliability, and then design and validation support. And then a few for other. Helen, are you surprised by these results?
I think in the situation that we're facing in this market, the number A and the number C definitely is pretty valid, especially everybody wants to know that whether it's DDR4 or DDR5, the current solution that we're having can really sustain for a long time. Not to mention that for each technology, each supplier have their own different die solution. So with that die could sustain even longer, that is some of the things that we need to factor in as well. So I'm not really surprised, and I'm glad to see that everybody have the good sense about the market trend.
Great, thanks, Helen. Thanks everybody for weighing in. And now let's move on to our final speaker. You've heard from him before. This is Thomas Cho, Senior Product Manager at Advantech.
Thank you, Michael. This is Thomas Cho, and I'm the Product Manager of Advantech for storage and DRAM products. So after all the presenters who talk about the market trend and the technology trends, so let's down to what's the features of Advantech which we can provide. So let's talk about the design philosophy. Advantech storage device has only one very important design philosophy. That is to provide a lifetime of stable operations. Stability is always the most important thing which we emphasize. Why? Because our system is working in harsh environment. Very cold, very high, temperature can be up to 85 degrees ambient, or people need the longevity, revision control, or in a very high vibration shock environment, or medical device which needed longevity. So conclude that Advantech actually provide 4 design features which will be put into our storage and DRAM products. So number 1, I saw that in the previous poll, people are almost 60% of people need a better write endurance. we have a solution. By firmware, actually, we store only 1 bit of data into a 3 bit TLC cell. By doing this, the SSD can provide 10 times better write endurance versus a regular TLC SSD. And also at the same time, improve the thermal throttling performance, make it suitable for outdoor compact design, compact systems with a minimum airflow. The second one is power loss protection. I trust everyone has the experience that the Windows will require you to safely remove a sound drive. Why doing that? Why Windows does not require other USB devices to safely remove? That is because the data might be lost if you unplug a sound drive from your system, while system is writing data to the sound drive. But reflect to daily life, power outage is something like you unplug the sound drive without safe remove. But we do not have the luxury to prevent our power outage. I trust everybody agree. So, but to prevent data loss is very important in certain of the applications. For instance, like a data log or communication devices. So to resolve this concern, Advantech designed we call super cap into the SSD. The super cap will serve as a mini UPS in the SSD. And the SSD will constantly monitor the voltage, input voltage into the SSD. Once it senses the voltage drop, it will stop the communication and will dump the data from the cache to the main NAND flash to prevent the data loss. This is not perhaps, or maybe it can protect the data. Actually, it goes through the 3500 cycle of test to ensure that there's no data loss. Third one is the FIPS certified SSD. FIPS is a common requirement for military and required by law to store the patient information. Advantech provide a series of FIPS certified SSD, and also not only that, we also provide a series of a NIOP certified common criteria SSD for federal government high security applications. The third one is talk about the enterprise grade SSD. Michael just mentioned that it's the booming demand for enterprise grade. Why is the enterprise grade? Actually, it provides some of the valuable features. Number one is designed for 24/7 operation. The second one is it guaranteed 10 times less error data versus regular client level SSD. The third one is it guarantees the latency of the SSD. It means that latency sometimes is important during your daily life. While you write a report on your laptop, sometimes you feel that there's a small hold on your SSD on your system. That is the latency. It might not be important when you are writing a report, but when you are in the daily industrial applications like a high-end instrument, or for instance like a communication device, is totally unacceptable. So enterprise SSD can resolve the concern. So talk about why Advantech. So number one, we do believe that the quality comes from material and the production process. So we only use the original IC. We do not use ETT. We do not use the second grade component to produce our products. The second one is IPC610 and the ISO 13485 certified. So with our products, actually we can trace the production record down to 10 years. Another one is 100% test. Longevity and the revision control is commonly required by our customers. So we provide minimum 3 years of product longevity. And a lot of cases, actually, we do better than that. Some of the popular items, we can provide 6-7 years of longevity. Revision control and lock bond is by default available in Advantech products. Another service, firmware modification service, is very common to us. And also we provide special tests. special tests and the certification to our customers. For instance, you can be as simple as a conformal coating or put your custom label on that, or sometimes can be more complicated, like put your serial number and your product information into the DMI. We can provide the service. So this is a line card of the Advantech SSD. You can see with the SATA, we cover almost every industrial form factors from CFast to SATA 2.5 inch. For NVMe, we have E1.S, E3.S, U.2 down to N.2, covers every form factor from 2280, 2242, and the 2230. At the same time, there's a good selection of the different NAND, TLC, single bit TLC, SLC, MLC, and also regular temperature and extended temperature up to minus 40 to 85 degrees C. We do the same on the DRAM. Here's only list the DDR5 and DDR4. We have UDIN, SODIN, RDIN, without or with ECC, and with a different temperature ratings, 0 to 95 or minus 40 to 95. So talk about our focus. So in conclusion, Advantech is not the newest, not the fastest, and for sure not the cheapest in the market. But instead, we provide some of the valuable features for your applications. So number one, we designed the SSD especially to meet the demanding application requirement to ensure lifetime of stable operation. The second one is we maintain an extensive selection of the SSD including legacy form factors and also a different NAND flash selections, SLC, MLC, etc. And they're still providing DDR2, DDR3, those kind of legacy DRAM. And also, as I mentioned, we have a good selection of service which can provide, can meet your needs. The last one is sometimes we have customers which will request us to resume the manufacturing of EOL products. And we will do our best to meet this kind of requirement with a minimum NRE, minimum MOQ, as long as the component is available in the market. All right, that concludes my presentation. Back to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Thomas, and thanks to all of our presenters today. I just want to remind our audience that you can download a certificate of completion on the bottom right side of your console. Now, I know I mentioned we would have a Q&A today, but I think we're going to wrap up the webinar a bit early. If you have asked a question, the questions will be sent to our presenters, so don't worry, you will get a response later on. Now, I want to say a final thank you to Meng Shen, Michael, Helen, and Thomas for that thought-provoking presentation. I want to say thanks to Advantech for sponsoring today's webinar, and Phison and Transcend for participating. And thank you also to our audience for tuning in to learn a little bit more about design and engineering. Remember, this presentation and recording will be available on demand at engineering.com. One final thing, we want to hear how we did today. So an exit survey will pop up on your screen. Please take a moment to complete it so we can continually improve these webinars for you. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.